provide some education and improve communication rather than just merely sort of confrontation. So I really hope that, that we together, this group and others, and all those involved, school administrators, teachers, community members, regulators, can get together for sort of a thoughtful look at how we regulate. And I think, well, maybe some of you know this, but I think it's the Salinas High School District proposing a school in North Salinas, and I'm happy to pass these around if you want to see. But there's a school siting right in the middle of agriculture, and then I've got another one, if you want to just pass these around, that shows kind of a buffer zone of 660 feet, 1320 to 2460, which is an eighth, a quarter, and a half of a mile. So if you wanted to just pass those around, it might be useful to see that. And I really, this is one of those points before I continue, I just want to see if there's any comments about that, if any of you have engaged or how you feel about that. It's under secret review right now. Our office is commenting on it, and I quite frankly find it incredible that we're citing a school right in the middle of agriculture, especially with all the attention that's happening. The city of Salinas is planning on building around that eventually, but we've got a potential conflict on our hands, and I'm real curious how folks see that in terms of conflict. I mean, does anybody have any thoughts about that? Is anybody participating?
Yeah, it's absurd.
No.
It's absurd.
Here's a show of hands.
After all of this, no.
I was just going to say, I think we all realize how problematic that is. It goes to the whole heart of this issue of our schools being in proximity of the fields where there's work's being done, and efforts to protect crops through the use of fumigants and different pesticides. And so I guess my question would be is, how does your office weigh in on something like that? Because we would hope that school districts would be consulted with you and your team of experts on how to approach this issue.
Well, that's, I mean, we're going to send a letter, Bob. Maybe you can comment.
What we're commenting on is the notice of preparation for the draft environmental impact report, and that only looks at certain types of environmental impact. I understand the school district has already bought the parcel. I mean, so the school district has great power of eminent domain, and they can build, they can do a lot of things. They have a lot of power. So if they want to go ahead with that site, I think it's going to be very difficult to stop them. The question is, what were they thinking when they chose that site?
Well, at this point, it sounds like it's a done deal. So if the school's going to be there, and then the fields are going to be around there, maybe the agricultural commissioner could set up a buffer zone around where the school will be.
Well, that's a good point, and I think we should probably keep track of some of these topics and then spend some additional time talking about it. I mean, we can do it a little bit now, but the reality is we don't have the authority to do that.
You don't have the authority to set up a buffer zone around the school?
No, we do not.
You do not have the authority as the agricultural commissioner of Monterey County to set up a buffer zone around a school.
No, we do not.
You do not have the authority.
Correct.
Aren't you the agricultural commissioner?
Yes.
Who has the authority?
Planning Commission and the City Council.
Huh?
Planning Commission and the City Council.
Okay, I'm sorry. So let's, I guess it's bringing it down a bit because I think we thought there was going to be a presentation and then there were going to be questions. And so I don't want to interrupt your part either. And some of this stuff, as you mentioned here, we might address later. But Luana first.
But before we get off on that topic, which is really, really an important one to address, because I think we did discuss that at the last session in depth, and we did get an answer to whether you have authority or not. But we have a group representing an awful lot of people here. Each one of these people here represents hundreds, if not thousands, of people in Monterey County. So if you could get a list of the people that are here, which I think Mark is, Glenn has taken a list. That would be something that should be presented to the powers that be, to say that this is not a good place to put a school. There's going to be a lot of problems. With problems that,
to me, and we can go on, but and I'm glad to talk about it more later. But I think there's some things that we can talk about where there can be some collaboration, and to me, this is one of those places. But sort of my view.
Just quickly.
Yeah, just in the spirit of collaboration, when I look at that map, what I see immediately is that this is a much larger problem. This is a systemic problem of urban sprawl and preservation of agricultural land, and where do you put all of the kids that are coming in, and so on. So I just feel like we need to consider together a much bigger picture here, too.
And then, why did you, go ahead.
Okay, it just seems, from your question and your style of how you ask it, real like forceful, it kind of sends a message like, we're not happy with your answer, but that was his answer, which I'm not happy with either, but I understand structures to be the way they are. It tells us as the community that we better get our act together when it comes to the city council annexing property, when it comes to school boards, city councils, school boards, and county annexing or buying property. And maybe the county could be a part of it as well, that you encourage those elected bodies to consider having a sit down with folks of this particular concern, because it's affecting all of us, and it's going to keep affecting us the rest of our lives as long as we have agriculture out here. And it's just something that should be done ahead of time, not after, because now we bought the property, we're in the middle of the toxic
What's the adoption of the specific plan?
This state has a better infrastructure to oversee the use of pesticides than any other agricultural state. They do. I mean, you can shake your head or not, but they really do. They have more inspectors on the ground. They have more restrictions. I'm sorry, do you want to talk to me? I mean, do you want to have a
I'm
conversation?
just saying that you're not teaching where we teach. You're not watching your students next to the fields that are being sprayed where we teach. And so it's very hard for me to hear you say that, because you're saying we're doing such a great job. And when I see my coworker going to Stanford for her cancer evaluations, who's worked right next to the field for 16 years, it's very painful for me to hear you say what a great job you guys are doing at regulating pesticides. So it hurts me to hear you say that.
I was told they don't inspect at night because they have women inspectors, and it's too dangerous for them to go out at night, so please.
Let me respond to this first, though. I do hear that. I wish we were in a different world too, where we didn't use pesticides.
Yeah, wouldn't that be
At the
great?
national level, we make a risk assessment. We say, you know, this much risk is okay and this isn't. And that's not what any of us want. We all want our kids to be risk-free. All I'm trying to say is you have some people in front of you today who are willing to talk about it, willing to explain that we don't have any power over land use, but we'll talk to you about who does, and kind of get a coalition going, just point us in the right direction to make something happen. So I just want to say that there's a lot in place here. A lot of people look to EPA as if we can do more, and to be perfectly honest, we do less. And I feel really bad about that. I feel bad about what our agency can and can't do. But just to keep it in context, it doesn't mean that I don't want more to happen. It doesn't mean, I mean, I also, I work on pesticides and toxics issues, but I also have the Children's Health Program, and I have a Sustainable Communities Program. So I care about these issues. I've worked on them my whole life. And I just want you to know that if we can find ways to do more, these people I know are actually really willing to do that, but we've got to figure it out.
And I'm not saying that on behalf of, just for myself. I'm here to speak for the students and for the other staff. So I'm not just trying to be a naysayer and say, what are you doing here, and attack you. I'm not trying to say that. Thank you for coming. What I'm here to do is to represent the staff and the students at my school, and that's what they entrusted me to do. And so, I feel that they have entrusted me to come here and do as much as I can to educate the people who I thought actually had authority, but I'm hearing now maybe they don't have authority. But I was hoping that I was at a meeting where there was people that could be the movers and shakers and the people that could actually make changes. So that was my intent, and that was my hope, was to come here to give you you know, the people on the ground's point of view and perspective, so that you could say, oh wow, and then we will make those regulations.
Olivia, and then
First of all, I think it's really important to know that we need the agriculture. And it is incredible that we're here in Salinas. Salinas is a very important place because of our agriculture. And a lot of people are employed because of the agriculture. And so we embrace that. But what I'm hearing, and I think that is important that you're here, is there's the puzzle and some things are not making. So I'll repeat myself. So where does a chloropicrin in the air captured by the state's air monitoring device at the Salinas Airport come from? Is it from the drift?
Oh.
About how far have the pesticides drifted to reach the Salinas Airport air monitoring site?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yes, you're correct that I'm with the Department of Pesticide Regulation. We do run an air monitoring station at the Salinas Airport, and we have detected several pesticides at that site, including chloropicrin. We are still analyzing the data to relate the air concentrations we're detecting with the use of the pesticide in the surrounding area. So we are taking a look at that, but at this point, I don't have any solid data for you.
Really, the point of the question is why in the world would an air monitoring device be placed in the airport when there's not really any fields around there? And if there's still being chloropicrin being picked up on that air monitoring device, even though it's distant from the actual drift and from the fields, that means there's a lot. But it makes really no sense to place it there, and we need monitoring devices placed closer to where the people are being affected, closer to the schools and the hospitals and the housing developments that are next to the fields. It's just ridiculous to put it at an airport.
Sorry. Concern at the Salinas Airport, having drifted from more than a quarter mile away, might the same thing have happened at our schools, maybe even closer to chloropicrin applications?
Yeah, so I'm ready to go. Yes, so the site at Salinas is one of 6 that we have throughout the state, looking for several different pesticides. You're correct in that the chloropicrin at the Salinas Airport likely came from further away, and we are taking a look at that. But the monitoring that's being done at all 6 sites is in addition to monitoring that is done elsewhere as well. The monitoring being done within the communities, including the Salinas Airport, is designed to tell us the long-term air concentrations for many pesticides at the same time. You're particularly interested in people living right next to fields, and we do different types of monitoring to estimate those exposures, where we have samplers within a few feet of the field to measure what's coming off directly from that application. And that's the data we use to develop buffer zones and other protections.
Yes, but with levels of concern being found at a quarter mile distance, isn't that a concern in and of itself that we don't have sufficient buffer?
Not necessarily. The concentrations exceeded what we call our screening levels. And that screening level is a threshold that if we go over it, which we have in this case, it's sort of a trigger for us to take a closer look as to what's going on and do a more detailed evaluation. Not necessarily that we need to take additional regulatory action, but only that we need to evaluate it more closely. And we're doing that. That's what I'm talking about, that we're trying now to determine what caused those concentrations, what was the pesticide use in the area, what were the weather conditions at the time, and things like that.
What's the deadline for a report?
We're looking at several different pesticides. Chloropicrin is one, 1,3-D is another, and so it's still going to take us a few months at least.
Thank you for bringing up 1,3-D.
Yes.
Following up on chloropicrin and 1,3-D, since the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention lists chloropicrin as a lung-damaging agent, do you think chloropicrin might be contributing to asthma in school children?
I knew you were going to look at me. I'm Mary Lou Verder-Carl, Assistant Director for the Department of Pesticide Regulation. As you know, those studies are done at epidemiological studies to be able to relate asthma to any other cause. So the cause and effect are done in epidemiology studies or any. But to tell you the truth, we don't know for sure that it could cause asthma, but because it's a respiratory irritant in an acute scenario, if you inhale it, of course it would trigger an asthma if you're very close to it, and the asthma can be triggered by any respiratory irritant, for example.
Because we teachers have seen over and over that the level of asthma is rising among our students. I've had half my class coughing on a single day. And as my colleague pointed out, epidemiology gets pretty ugly when it's on the individual level. So I'm a godfather to siblings. One has spina bifida, the other has autism spectrum disorder. And we know that these things can be caused by the substances being applied within half a mile, or within a quarter mile of their home, their mother's home when she was pregnant. And they're within city limits. The concentration of 1,3-D or T-lone was above regulatory cancer risk levels in 2011 at the Salinas Airport. Do we have any reason to believe that such cancer risk concentrations do not exist at schools in Monterey County, where 1,3-D may be found applied even closer than at the airport?
We had just finished our draft risk assessment that we sent on 1,3-D, that we had sent for peer review to the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, US EPA, and we also sent it for external peer review to UC Berkeley. And so we are wanting to make sure that the science that we use for that risk assessment before a regulatory decision is going to be made. So we're so close. We're hoping that we can finalize that risk assessment by this year, so then we can have mitigation measures, additional mitigation measures for 1,3-D. But we finished that risk assessment, and it's out for peer review right now.
We're hanging on with bated breath.
Want you to follow up?
Yeah, I'm raising my hand trying to get a word in. I know you guys are jumping in, and you got some good questions, and I appreciate that. But my question is about the airport, but also as individuals. We have relationships, and talking to you, all you guys seem pretty pleasant in conversation. You understand that you're looking at a bunch of people who are not happy, right? We're not happy. Understand that more than anything else. So some of us might be more polite than others, but we're really kind of pissed off at the fact that a lot of conversation has come back and forth, and very little has been done that we are happy with. For example, the airport machinery that you have out there, that apparatus for monitoring, why is it at the airport? I mean, you wait for a mile and a half to catch it in your filters, etc. By then, it's already far diluted from where it was from the point source. And when you look at that, you start to analyze maybe asthma and other illnesses that the kids have, and you start to put it together. But if you're at the airport, you don't know if it's coming from Old Stage Road, or if it's coming from this side of town, blowing across that way. I know you can look at your machinery and see which way the air is going. But what time did it get registered in, who sprayed it, all that kind of stuff. If you had it closer to the schools, which is our concern, closer to our community, our kids, the most vulnerable of all, our kids, right? Okay, take care of that, and we'll be happy a little bit that you made an effort. In one of 6 machines that you have in the state of California, 6 machines, that's embarrassing. You ought to have 6 in Salinas. 1 in every school. That's my opinion. But of course, you're talking to somebody who's not happy. But I have gotten some good response from you guys as staff. When I go up to you, talk to you guys, it's all great. And I know that maybe that's a lot of PR. Maybe it's PR on my point to come in soft and gentle and trying to just have a relationship. But there's a lot of angst going on in our community. And you guys are right in the middle of it. You get it from the ag guys who aren't happy because you're monitoring them or fining them. You're going to get it from us because you're not fining people. Where's your enforcement? You got women that can't go out at nighttime?
Where's your humanity?
Let's take care of the job, because we have, here in East Salinas, we have shootings, we have all this stuff. We're going to complain to somebody. And who do you think it's going to be? The city council and the chief. That's you guys. You guys are our police. You guys are our folks. And we have elected officials. We have representatives who've been working in the industry for years around schools. We know what the problems are. We're just trying to get you guys and help you if that's what you need. If you need our help publicly to push you publicly so that you don't look bad in front of the growers, we'll be happy to do that. We'll go pick at you and then have you react and do the right thing. And do the right thing. We will help you do the right thing. And you can blame us for it. But we need that done, and we need it done quick.
Yesterday.
You know, we have 30, 40, 50 years of this toxic stuff coming around Monterey County. Our wells are polluted. You can't even drink water out of any surface water system anymore throughout the country, which is really embarrassing. When I was a kid, you could drink out of a creek. Now you can't even do that, so it's bad. And we all living in the same toxic mess. We need to work together like a team. So if you don't like the questions that we ask or how we're asking them, understand, we're not very happy with the situation. And we understand when you guys act and respond defensively and give us a lot of blah, 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 you're doing your job. You're trying to take care of what your business is. But ours is to get you guys to act and do the right thing. And that's what we're here to do.
Did anybody want to respond to that?
Move that machine. Do that.
I just want to say that in order to get them to do more enforcement, we gotta change the federal pesticide regulations, and we don't know how to do it either. I mean, we have laws.
We can't change the federal. We gotta work right here in our own communities.
No, he cannot enforce what isn't a law. There's no way for him to enforce.
We can't sit here and wait for the feds to do this. This is our community. I can tell you right now, that if this were happening where I live, in Carmel Valley, at Tulare Cedar School, it wouldn't happen, period. It would not happen to the people in Carmel Valley. They would not allow this to happen to the little white kids in Carmel Valley. I can tell you that right this second. Eric would suddenly have the power to stop this from happening. It would not happen.
So my question
Hang on a
is,
second, please. You've been waiting.
You know, they've mentioned that we are farther ahead than most counties. Well, you know, I honestly have to say, I think you have to thank Juan Martinez for that. Because if it had not been for his work at the very beginning, in the 60s and 70s, when we first started to complain about the agriculture chemicals, and I don't call them pesticides, I call them toxic, carcinogenic agriculture chemicals. That's what they are. And so when you talk about monitoring pesticides, you're talking about one element of the science, not all of the science. You're talking about fungicides, herbicides, insecticides, and all the other science that go with agriculture. Now, so one of the things that does not happen at any level when you look at the chemical that's being introduced is how does it react when another chemical is introduced into the air or into
with a small group from the Safe Strawberry Coalition. We met with Mr. Morrison and his staff on August 21st, and you told us your job was to regulate for acute exposures to pesticide. And that's a very good thing to be doing. I am very concerned about the subacute chronic exposures of anybody, most particularly young children. In Europe, our system of agriculture is called the toxic Head Start, because we start so young exposing children, farmer children usually, to pesticides. So that's a question. The concern for the subacute levels, and I'm not sure if the monitoring is taking that into consideration. With only 6 air monitors in the state of California, that's not really.
Doing some of that, but you're right, it's not good enough. And I think our scientists are doing everything they can to push that, but they are doing some of that. But bottom line for those kind of risks, the federal government is charged with looking at that pesticide, looking at the risks, looking at the exposures, and then looking at the economics. That's the other thing you have to do.
Okay. This is not new, all these things for the pesticides. And they, in 1988, Cesar Chavez passed for 36 years. That's why regarding to the pesticides, because a lot of kids in Erimar and Merfarna, they born without arms and legs. So this is not new. But at that time, maybe, especially in the small towns, nobody know the dangers of the pesticides, but I don't know, I don't understand at this time in these big cities, nobody do something because I don't know planning to make the schools in the middle of the fields. Everybody right now know the dangers of the pesticides. So that's why I don't understand why they make that decisions to make